There are some excellent images of sheet music that have been abstracted, but musicians don't just see these works as just visuals or pieces of art, they see them as something that can be played. These types of images become a tool for experimentation and improvisation. They give you a starting point. I wanted to create an abstract image of sheet music, but I chose to begin with the lines that represent the staff. At this time, when I was looking at sheet music, I would see the notes as a series of hills in the landscape. I was playing melodies on the clarinet and I'd begin to notice hills in those images. So instead of writing notes, I chose to draw hills. They became two landscapes that could also be used as sheet music, and I'll show you how this is possible later in the process. I also wanted to include a portrait of a person in the image because I wanted the artwork and the music to be a portrait of a loved one. It could be said that I'm working with too many ideas at the same time and that is going to make the process more difficult. I would accept this criticism. I'd been working on a series that included portraits and that influenced my choice. Sometimes the ideas that you're working on can compete and it can give the work a lack of direction. This is something you need to be mindful of. Yet, it's also important to challenge yourself and test your creativity. You don't want to make things too simple. You can't immediately recognize this as sheet music. The only identifiable part is the staff, the lines. The hills reveal the shape of the journey of the notes, but it doesn't tell me exactly where those notes are. This is space to improvise. I can make those choices. The artwork is finished, and this next stage is solely to assist me in turning the image into music. I turned the image into black and white, and then I placed red dots on the lines that depicted the edge of those hills. Those circles can be our musical notes. We are going to start by looking at the circles in the top section, that first line of notes. I've copied the notes into music notation software. I've used notes that are all the same length because there isn't any indication of what note length to use, although this is something that we can change later on. You'll notice this symbol. This indicates a rest, a slight pause in the music. If you sing or play a wind instrument, these pauses tell you when to breathe. I think I accidentally added a gap when I was writing out the notes. At this stage, every note is the same length and the space between each note is also the same, except for that one pause. When I play it back, you'll notice that it isn't very interesting because all the notes are the same. And that slight pause might be the only thing of interest. However, this is something we will change. We can choose from a collection of different note lengths. This is an image of notes of various lengths. The notes go from fast to slow. Listen to the note lengths when this is played on piano. Now I've created a version that includes different types of notes. There is variation in the length of each note, and there are also rests between some of the notes. Let's hear how it sounds now the length of the notes has changed. Notice how it slows down and quickens in different places and how that adds to the melody. I could then expand that into a larger section. I'm using Sibelius. I'm actually using the free version, so it's something anyone can experiment with. I've expanded the melody into a larger section. Here it is. We now have a section of music that has been created from the upper section of notes. We also have a lower section that we can use to create another section for this piece of music. I've used the circles to tell me where the notes go when I write them in my music notation software. Let's hear what it sounds like before I change the length of the notes. The notes are the same pitch as before, but I've changed the length of the notes and added pauses. Let's see how it sounds now. Just changing the length of the notes makes it more interesting. I can now expand that melody into a larger section. Let's take a look at what I've come up with. like to compose having the playback in piano and then change the instruments later. That's my process at the moment, but it may change. It's always important to remain creative and experimental. Currently, each section sounds like a piano, but we can change this. I've exported each section as a MIDI file, and I can now take those files into a DAW, a digital audio workspace. There are many to choose from, but I'm using Ableton Live. This allows me to alter the instruments and make changes to the final mix. Here is the finished track.